Here's today's prophecies update. The Bible prophesies that the area of Judea-Samaria, also referred to as the West Bank, will be under the control of Israel's enemies during the final 7 years preceding Armageddon. Recently, opposition leader Isaac Herzog has called for a wall of separation between Israelis and Palestinians. Now, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu is announcing the resumption of building on the separation wall, which is already 60% done. At the same time, France is calling for a global conference to reach a peace settlement between Palestinians and Israelis, which would then be given the force of international law by a UN Security Council resolution. It appears that we are moving right now toward the fulfillment of the prophecy that Palestinians will be in possession of the West Bank in the near future. Can the beginning of the final 7 years to Armageddon be far behind? Well, an awesome week indeed here at Politics and Religion Development. We don't know whether this is it or not. We've been talking about 4 years, the time when an agreement between Palestinians and Israelis will be signed. Now then, everything is suddenly being kicked into high gear. What are the possibilities that the final 7 years will begin before President Obama leaves office? Well, they're certainly going to try. Now, before we actually dive in today, oh, by the way, this is open line. That means today is your day to be on the air with me. The number to call, 877-END-TIME. That's 877-363-8463. And Jim Stiglman is in our headquarters. He is anchoring the program for me. Now, once again, the number 877-END-TIME to be on the air with me. I am in Houston, Texas, where I will be holding a conference this evening. If you're any place near this conference, I would certainly encourage you to make it. I will be giving a brand new lesson here, a very important lesson, from here to Armageddon and world's greatest revival just ahead. I will be laying out tonight what's going to happen from right now until the Battle of Armageddon. And then we're going to talk about some new material. I have found in the Bible proof that we're going to have the greatest revival in the history of the world in the days just ahead. Even as Satan makes his master move, God is not going to be inactive. He is going to make his. I'll be laying it all out tonight. That's in Houston, Texas, at the Christ Church, 12815 Fuquay Street, right here in Houston. The time is 7:30 p.m. Of course, that's tonight, March the 18th, Friday evening. So if you're able to come, be there. It's going to be a wonderful and great time. Now, it's been an interesting week this week, because it all started off with a huge bang on Monday. France was introducing a plan to the European Union. The European Union, of course, is a union of 28 nations consisting of 500 million people in Europe. Europe has become very powerful lately. Most people are not noticing it yet, but they passed the United States of America economically in 2007, and they are continuing to grow. Germany sits at the heart of Europe. Germany is the dominant force there. So when France introduced this plan, the European Union is considering the plan. Our Secretary of State, James Kerry, was there at the press conference where this plan was being introduced, and he gave his support to this. Now, a while back, actually last year, I think it was March of 2015, during the Israeli elections, when Prime Minister Netanyahu appeared to be on the brink of defeat, however, at the last moment, he was able to pull out a victory. Well, it was at that particular time that Martin Endike, who works in the State Department, stated that whoever was elected as the leader of Israel should move quickly to achieve a two-state solution, because if Israel did not move toward a two-state solution, the United States would consider acting through the United Nations to bring about a peace agreement. Since negotiations had failed between Palestinians and Israelis, And since those negotiations had been overseen by the United States of America, it was Endtime's opinion, and he undoubtedly was speaking for the Obama administration, that if Israel couldn't get a deal done, that then it would have to go before the UN Security Council, where they would mandate what the terms of a deal would be. Well, they did have the election. There's been no negotiation because the Palestinians would negotiate. Why should they? After all, it's already been announced, hey, if you don't negotiate, if you don't get a deal, we're going to the UN Security Council. Well, the Palestinians fully believe they can get a much better deal from the United Nations than they could get negotiating face-to-face with Israel. So they just said, we're not coming. And they have adamantly refused to negotiate ever since actually was March of 2014 that the last negotiations took place. So here we are now, Monday of this week. France has proposed a resolution to the European Union, which the European Union then will recommend to the UN Security Council, and it appears to have the support of President Obama. Now, let's think about this, because when you think about where we are right now, the Obama administration has a few months left in office. It was probably President Obama's highest ambition to get a peace deal done, something no one else has been able to do. He tried valiantly, but was unable. From the very beginning of his administration, he tried with all of his might, and then John Kerry came along and tried with all of his might, and yet he came up empty-handed. Well, what if he's decided, look, let's go for broke. Let's go ahead and send this to the UN Security Council. You know, it's already been done before, but we've always stood in the shadows with our veto power ready to take a hatchet to the resolution. This time we're going to announce that we're going to support the resolution. The United States is the only thing that kept it from passing before. So if the U.S. supports the resolution, the only thing that will have to be done is negotiations will have to be held over what form the resolution will take. Well, it appears that the Obama administration may be on the brink of doing this. Now, what could stop President Obama from doing this? Well, could it be that this action would serve as the death nail to the candidacy of Hillary Clinton? Because if President Obama tries to force Israel to the peace table, or force Israel to agree to a deal that Israel does not want to agree to, he's already done it once. He already did it in Iran when Netanyahu was vociferously objecting to the deal that he signed in Iran. But he did it anyway, so he has the capability to do it. Will he do it again? That's the big question. If he does, of course the Republicans are going to come out against it. So it will be a huge political issue right in the middle, the heat of the presidential campaign. That's part of what's going on right now. Now, let me remind all of you out there, this is Friday. It's open line. It is your day. The number to call to be on the air with me and Jim Stiglman, 877 Endtime. I am in Houston, Texas, broadcasting from there right now in preparation for our meeting tonight here in Houston. Okay, now let's do a little bit more of a review here. We've almost all week been talking about this issue. On Monday, we introduced it, and then Tuesday, my son-in-law David was on the air, and he discussed with you the difference between the Euphrates River War and the Battle of Armageddon. Now, the reason that's important is because a lot of people get this confused. A lot of people who do not understand the chronological order of the book of Revelation, they have jumped to the conclusion because both the Sixth Trumpet War and the Battle of Armageddon mentions the Euphrates River. So they say, aha, they both mention the Euphrates, must be the same war. Well, that cannot be true. So you discussed here on Tuesday why those wars are different. Let me just recap real quickly in case you were not tuned in on Tuesday. The Euphrates River War, which is the Sixth Trumpet War, happens before the beginning of the Great Tribulation. It happens in Revelation chapter 9. In Revelation chapter 10, the Great Tribulation begins, and then it lasts for the next 3.5 years, which is covered by Revelation chapter 11. Then it's at the end of the seven trumpets that the Battle of Armageddon takes place. It's at the time of the second coming of Jesus Christ. So consequently, even though the Euphrates is mentioned in both places, it states that the war that will kill one-third of mankind, the Euphrates River War, also we refer to it as World War III, it states that that war will emanate from the Euphrates River. But the prophecy about the Battle of Armageddon states that the Euphrates will be dried up to facilitate the invasion of Israel by the kings of the east. So consequently, that's the huge difference. It does not say the Euphrates will dry up. It just simply says that the war will emanate from the area of the Euphrates River. But at the time of Armageddon, a few years from now, it states that the Euphrates will actually be dried up to make way for the kings of the east to come down against Israel for the Battle of Armageddon. Then again on Wednesday, we just couldn't leave it alone. Hannah Nasrawi, a longtime member of the PLO Council, asked our officials here in the United States to use UN against Israel, to threaten Israel. We're going to pass a resolution and you're going to have to obey it. She officially asked our administration to do that. Well, we'll get back to this in a little bit. Right now, though, I think it's time to go to the telephones. And like I said, Jim Stiglman is back in Plano, Texas, anchoring our program today. So, Jim, let's go to you.
All right, 1-877-END-TIME is our on-air number. That's 1-877-363-8463. And let's start today in Indiana with Ted. You're first up.
Yeah, hi. In the spirit of politics and religion, there's something that's been bugging me, and in regards to Donald Trump. I was watching his 2020 interview, let's say, 2-3 months ago, and it jumped out at me. I think the interviewer, it might have been Barbara Walters, if I remember correctly. She asked Donald Trump if he had asked the Lord for forgiveness, and his answer was that he did nothing that required him to ask for forgiveness. And in an election year, that comment threw up a red flag to me, and I guess I'll listen to your response off the air. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, Ted. I'm trying to remember exactly how that response was phrased. I did hear the response at the time, and it didn't sound right to me. I would like to hear some more in-depth questioning of Donald Trump, exactly what he means by that, because it certainly, he claims to be a Christian. He is a Presbyterian, and he's very adamant that he is a devout Christian. Now, what form that takes in his mind, I do not know. So I cannot validate that or denounce that. Nevertheless, I would frankly, Ted, like to hear more. It's the only brief statement that's been made about that, and I'd love to hear someone follow up on why he said that, what his thinking was, because it certainly seems like an odd statement to make. All Christians, I think, have had to ask the Lord to forgive them. The Bible tells us that that's the first step to Jesus Christ, and that is repentance. So I can't defend, but I would like to more. It was such a short little clip, and there was no explanation for it. He just made the statement, and I don't know that anybody's followed up since that time. So, yeah, I would love to have Donald Trump on this program and ask him in depth what he meant by that. It would be very interesting to see what he would have to say. A lot of times, Donald Trump just makes an offhand statement and doesn't bother to explain. I think he ascribes sometimes to the philosophy of Henry Ford. Henry Ford said, here's my rule: never complain, never explain. So I don't know whether that's what Donald Trump is doing or not. So that's the best I can do for you, Ted, on that particular issue. Let's get back to the phone, Jim.
All right, let's go now to Texas. And David, you're next up on End of the Age.
Hello, Irvin.
Hello, David.
Hi. Irvin, I've got a question. Would you agree with me that Russia's going to be involved in both the Six Trumpet War and Armageddon? Both of them? Russia?
I don't know that for sure, David. We know for certain that Russia is going to be involved in Armageddon because Ezekiel 38 very clearly lays that out. The Bible does not tell us that Russia or the United States is going to be involved in World War III, even though it's quite likely that one or both of them will be involved. I don't know the answer to that. here's what we do know. We know that that war will emanate from the Euphrates River. We know that 1/3 of mankind will be killed. And we know an army of 200 million will participate in the war. Well, we know there are 3 entities on Earth that can field an army of 200 million, and only 3, China, India, and Islam. Those are the 3 powers that have an adequate population. So one of those 3 is going to be involved, if not more than one of them. And then we also know it will emanate from the Euphrates River, and the Euphrates River is a totally Islamic river, so that means Islam's going to be involved. I mean, the Euphrates River is a 100% controlled, Islamic-controlled river. So Islam is going to be involved. And then you got to look for someone that has the firepower to kill 1/3 of mankind. Then you look undoubtedly to Russia or the United States of America. It would take the nuclear firepower that, as far as I know, only those 2 have. So one of those 2 would have to be involved. In my opinion, the United States will almost certainly be involved. However, we do see one more fact that we can factor in here into our debate, and that is Russia is going to be an integral part of the kingdom of the Antichrist, because in Revelation 13, we see the kingdom of the Antichrist described as Germany, Russia, Great Britain, and a 10-nation union out of Europe. So could it be that Russia sits out this war and lets the United States take on the Islamic world? I don't know the answer to that. So I'm not absolutely sure. I'd be glad to hear your thoughts on it, David.
Well, I'm kind of stumped over that part of the prophecy that says the nation that will come against Israel is at its uttermost north, and God will destroy that nation, leave but 1/6 of it to survive.
That happens at Armageddon. We can prove
at Armageddon. Okay.
We can prove for certain.
What chapter is that?
That's Ezekiel 38 and 39. The first few verses of chapter 39 of Ezekiel talk about turning Gog back and leaving but 1/6 part of him. So that is Armageddon.
Well, see, that's what kind of led me to believe that Russia might be involved in both, that it might be this war that destroys 5/6 of it and leaves 1/6 of it forces. Because they have massive underground facilities in Russia they built over the last 50 years to hide their military machine in from attack. And if it left part of them that was undestroyed, 1/6 of them, they could possibly be the spearhead for the Chinese army coming at Armageddon. I don't know, but...
Well, actually,
you
the
say
1/6. The 1/6 that are going to be destroyed, that happens at Armageddon. We can prove conclusively that chapter 38 and 39 is Armageddon. Here's how. It says there that Russia, Iran, Ethiopia, Libya will all come down against Israel. And it says, God says, I will plead against them with pestilence, with blood, with fire, with great hailstones. Then it says, that, and all but 1/6 of Gog will be turned back. And then finally, the crowning proof is verse number 17 through 20 of chapter 39. It says there, call to the beasts of the field and the fowls of the air to come eat at the supper of our great God. Well, if you read about Armageddon in Revelation chapter 19, it says the exact same thing. As a matter of fact, it's the same verses 17 through 20. It says, call to the beasts of the field, the fowls of the air, to come to eat at the great supper of our God. So since that phrase is used in both places, to me, that's conclusive proof that both of those accounts talk about the Battle of Armageddon.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Irvin. Love your show. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you too, David. Always appreciate hearing from you. And let's go right back to the phones, Jim.
All right, 1-877-363-8463 is our on-air number to talk to Irvin today on End of the Age. Let's go now to Ohio, and Marianne, you're next up.
Hi, Irvin.
Hello, Marianne.
How are you today? Hey,
I'm wonderful, thank you.
Yeah, it's so weird that the guy that called in talking about Trump asking for forgiveness, I can't even believe I'm sitting here on my computer and I actually had that saved. And I can tell you exactly what he said.
Okay, tell us.
He was talking about that, he said, people are so shocked when they find out I am Protestant, I am Presbyterian, and I go to church, and I love God, and I love my church. Then that Frank Luntz, which was the moderator, asked whether he has asked God for forgiveness. And he said, I'm not sure I have. I just go on and try to do a better job from there. I don't think so, he said. I think if I do something wrong, I think I just try and make it right. I don't bring God into that picture. I don't. Okay, then he said, when I drink my little wine, which is about the only wine I drink, and have my little cracker, I guess that is a form of asking for forgiveness. And I do that as often as possible because I feel cleansed. I think in terms of let's go on and let's make it right.
Well, actually, that sheds a little better light on the whole situation than just him saying, no, I don't need to ask for forgiveness. I think that does.
I kind of thought that was like really blunt, and that's how it's reported. You know, and I actually had gone in and I actually had it saved to send to a friend of mine. And so it was too weird that the guy came on today and was saying about that. You know,
well, I appreciate you bringing that to us, Marianne, because I think that certainly helps.
Yep. All right. Well, that was all I called in for.
Well, so interesting. Of course, Donald Trump is such a different kind of politician. And sometimes he explains and sometimes he just says things flatly. And there have been a few times he's had to back up and make a revision to some of his statements. Of course, every politician has had to do that from time to time. I especially was chuckling to myself. I was listening to one of his interviews, and he talked about being out on the golf course with some of his friends, and he said, we came to a break in the coverage on the television, and he said they just had nothing but horrible spots against me, commercials against me. And he said, I said to all my friends, hey, don't watch this, go on over there. And he said, 90% of it was lies. He said, well, maybe 10% was true, which I thought was a little humorous, that he at least had enough humor about him to admit that some of what they said actually is true. So anyway, I thought it was an interesting point. Okay, I think we have time for at least one more in this segment. Jim, let's go.
All right, let's go now to Texas. And Joe, you're next up on End of the Age.
Yes, Irvin, had a question for you. I saw on the internet the other day, and I just wondered if you heard anything about this or not. It stated that China and Russia both threaten North Korea with military action if they keep up with these missile tests. Have you heard anything about that?
I heard that Russia and China had expressed their displeasure, but I did not read where they threatened military action. That would be a big thing.
Right. Okay. All right, then. That's it. I appreciate your time.
Well, thank you, Joe. And you have brought up a very critical issue, because we know that World War III is coming. And when you have North Korea here defying the entire world community, and I don't believe the world community has a right to tell Korea what to do. I don't believe the world community has a right to tell anyone what to do. Yet at the same time, it is a concern for all of us that North Korea is testing rockets. Of course, from North Korea's standpoint, they're saying, wait a minute, Russia's tested these rockets, China's tested these rockets, the United States has tested these rockets, Israel's tested these rockets. Why are they better than us? Why don't we have just as much right to develop weapons as they do? Of course, the one thing that people would reply is, well, you are such a wild cannon, we don't trust you. Well, anyway, that's where we are right now. We are at a turning point where people are having to decide, do we believe in world government or do we not? If we don't believe in world government, how do you control North Korea? If we do believe in world government, then let's use it against Israel, and let's force Israel and the Palestinians to reach an agreement and settle this once and for all. That's the big debate that's simmering very hotly under the surface right now, and we're moving toward a one-world government. And that's also the debate that's raging in the presidential election in the United States of America, because there are those who don't believe in a world government, and there are those who do. The establishment does. The establishment has been working toward it very vigorously for many, many years, and they think they're on the brink of getting it. But then here comes along Ted Cruz and Donald Trump, and it's like they're tearing up their playhouse. We were pretty sure that Donald Trump does not believe in world government, because he says, I'm going to build a wall and we're going to have a country. If we don't defend our borders, then we don't have a country anymore. All we have is a one world government. So he's very clear on his stance. It appears that Ted Cruz also would oppose one world government, because he tried a case before the Supreme Court where the Supreme Court was attempting, where there was a suit against the United States to try to force us to obey one of the rulings of the United Nations, and Ted Cruz defended U.S. sovereignty against the UN and the case that it brought. So it looks like that both of those probably would be against incorporating us into a one world governmental system. And so for that to be boiling right now with North Korea, with Israel, with us, well, it's interesting. It's an interesting scenario. Now, we're going to continue to take your call. What's that, Jim? Well, anyway, we're almost out of time in this segment. Let me say to all of you, Houston, Texas tonight. Don't miss it if you're anywhere in the neighborhood. 12815 Fuquay Street, Christ Church, Houston, Texas. The subject, from here to Armageddon, and the world's greatest revival just ahead. It's going to be an incredible conference tonight. If you can make it, don't miss it.
When current events are found in Bible prophecy, it's astonishing. At Endtime Ministries, we are seeing them unfold every day, and so can you. We've put together a current events in Bible prophecy package for anyone who wants to understand like never before. Irvin Baxter and his dedicated staff have spent hundreds of hours of research and study, and in doing so have discovered that current events in Bible prophecy are telling the same story. These 13 DVDs will prepare you to be ready in this extraordinary time that God has destined you to live. Call 1-800-ENDTIME or go to endtime.com and save over 20% when you buy the current events in Bible prophecy package.
All my life I have heard the statement, nobody's perfect. But one day Hebrews 10:14 caught my attention. It says, "For by one offering he hath perfected forever them that are sanctified." I attempted to reconcile this statement with what I had viewed as the many imperfections in myself. Could it be that there are human beings on this earth that God considers perfect? In You Are Perfect, Irvin Baxter explains what it means to be sanctified and why God sees those that are sanctified as perfect. This teaching has given people peace and security in their walk with God because of new understanding of how God sees them. This lesson is available on DVD, CD, in printed format, or even digital download. To tell you not what's wrong with you, but what's right with you. You are perfect. Call 1-800-ENDTIME or go to endtime.com to get yours today.
If your radio station only carries the first 30 minutes of End of the Age, go to endtime.com to continue to listen to today's broadcast.
Well, I have almost messed up, but I'm going to redeem myself right now. Our staff here at Endtime Ministries came to me recently saying, we want to put on the biggest sale ever here at Endtime Ministries. So I listened to them and I said, okay, let's do it. Go ahead. Well, that's happening right now. All you have to do is go to endtime.com. That's ENDTIME.com. And you will see all the information there. And a lot of people, they want to do certain things. They don't feel like they can afford it. So what we've done, we're running some big special prices right now just to help you. So if you're out there and you'd like to take advantage of this at this time, just simply go to endtime.com. Already the response has been terrific from this. So I just want to make sure everybody knows about it. You're right now listening to End of the Age. Today is Open Line. I am in Houston, Texas, where I will be holding a conference this evening on the subject From Here to Armageddon and the greatest revival just ahead, the world's greatest revival, just ahead, I'll be describing how it's going to come, what the Bible says. I'm not giving you my opinion. I will be showing you from the Bible. There is a great revival coming, and I also will be talking about how you and I can be a part of it. So it's going to be a great time. That's tonight at Christ Church in Houston, Texas, 12815 Fuquay Street at 7:30 p.m. this evening. That's March the 18th. Well, I'm in Houston, Texas right now. Jim is anchoring the program back at Plano, Texas. It is open line if you want to be on the air with Jim and myself. The number to call, 877-END-TIME, 877-363-8463. And, Jim, let's get back to our phones.
All right, let's start this segment out in North Carolina with Aaron. You're first up.
Hey, how you doing, Pastor?
I'm doing wonderful, Aaron. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. I've been having some problems understanding the mark of the beast. Just for the simple reason, I'm struggling with the fact on how, because my understanding that the mark of the beast is not going to be implemented until the 7 years begins after the peace deal happens. But what I was having trouble understanding is that the global takeover, or how big the mark of the beast is going to become, it's hard for me to understand it becoming that big in just a 7-year period. I think it would take a very, very long time for it to be implemented. Unless I heard a pastor preaching, and his theory he brought up, I'm not sure if it's biblical. So I was calling to ask you. He said that the mark of the beast isn't necessarily just a chip, that the way that they would get a lot of the people during that time to take the mark is by disguising it as something to do with health, and that when you do get it implemented, in your right arm or your forehead, once you do get the chip implemented there, that it would inevitably do something to your DNA, and that's why the Bible says that at that point it's basically no hope for you once you take the mark, because it basically changes you. It constructs your DNA, and you're basically not being you wouldn't be considered a human anymore. And he was backing a lot of it up with with what happened in the times of Noah, when how a lot of the people's blood was it was defiled, and they weren't 100% human anymore. And he backed it up with the book of Noah. So I just wanted to get your opinion on that, and maybe your thoughts on what that preacher said, and I'll take my answer off the line.
Okay, Aaron, well, thank you very much. And it is an important question because there's a lot of theories going around. Here's what we know for certain about the mark of the beast. Number one, it won't be the mark of the beast until you're required to pledge allegiance or to worship the beast, the Antichrist, and his one world government. That's the reason it's going to be wrong. It's not the technology that makes it wrong, although technology will certainly be used to implement the mark of the beast. The Bible tells us that every person will have to have a mark or a number without which they cannot buy or sell. The Bible in one place calls the mark of the beast the mark of the name of the beast. We don't know the technology. We don't even know that it's going to be a chip. There's a lot of people teaching that there's going to be a computer chip injected under the skin. The technology to do that does exist right now. They have a computer chip less than the size of a grain of rice that can be injected under the skin. It can be encoded with your particular information, and that would cause you to have access to all types of things. But the Bible says one thing for certain: you'll have to have this in order to buy or sell. And if you don't pledge allegiance and worship the Antichrist, and in so doing you would be worshiping Satan himself, if you don't do that, then they will not validate your number, and you will be frozen out of the economy. Now, the Bible teaches this will happen during the final 3.5 years. The reason I know it's during the final 3.5 years is because the Antichrist won't be revealed until the final 3.5 years. So you can't worship the Antichrist if we don't even know who he is yet. So consequently, this will happen during this very short period of time. Now, Aaron was asking how in the world would this get set up so fast? Well, it's a good question. The matter of fact is, it's being set up right now. Almost every nation on earth has a national ID system, which could very quickly be converted to a global ID system. We have global phone numbers. They have your phone number, and then all you do, if you live in the United States, you put 011 on the front of it, and now you have a global phone number. They can call you from anywhere in the world. Well, they can do the same thing, whether it's your Social Security number or whatever number that they end up using. They could just put the U.S. prefix in front of it, 011 or whatever, and that would turn your number into a global ID system. The only hope we have for escaping this system is to keep the world government out of the United States of America. And this particular presidential campaign we're in right now is, under the surface, all about that. All of the cruel and vicious attacks against Ted Cruz and Donald Trump are because they fear that they're going to stop their whole global agenda that they've been working on for 100 years. And that's the reason you hear people from Europe railing against Trump, calling him Adolf Hitler, everything else. They're doing this because they understand. Well, the headlines to Drudge a couple of days ago was a threat to the New World Order, because the New World Order is the one world government, and Trump is a threat to that one world government. He wants to bring back U.S. interest. The reason we have been losing in trade, we've been doing it on purpose because we're involved in setting up a global system of wealth redistribution. Therefore, we think we should suffer these losses in trade, bring our standard of living down a little bit, raise the standard of living of the world up to that level. And after all, it's the Marxist dream, and who's not a socialist these days? At least that's the way they think. And so consequently, all of us should be equal. I mean, one of the worst things you can say right now is that you're not for equality. Well, we're all created equal, but to try to make everybody exactly the same, and all of us have the same amount of money that Donald Trump or the Bushes or whoever else you want to name has, that's never going to happen. It's not going to happen. Nevertheless, that's the big idea. Let's have a world of equality of everyone, and everybody's entitled to health care. They're entitled to good housing. They're entitled to everything. If they don't work a lick, they're entitled to it. That's the concept of socialism. Consequently, that's the reason it's become, that's really the underlying issue behind everything in this campaign right now. So the mark of the beast is not necessarily going to be in your DNA. Do I believe that we're going to see a reenactment of angels cohabiting with men as happened in Noah's day? No, I do not believe that. I think those are some wild, wild theories that are being thought up right now. I just simply think that most people right now already are willing to accept a national ID and thus a global ID. And the only thing is, we better make sure we will never worship a man or pledge allegiance to a man or pledge allegiance to a world government. Those are red lines we should never cross. Okay, let's get back to the phones. Jim.
All right, let's go now to Texas. And Patrick, you're next up on End of the Age.
How's it going, Mr. Irvin Baxter?
Going wonderful, Patrick. How about you?
Oh, yeah, very well. I just want to just ask your thoughts on a couple of questions. And what they are is, if Trump does become the president of the United States, how do you think it will affect public relations in our nation? And what do you think it'll mean to the world and to our war with ISIS?
Well, Donald Trump has claimed that he will obliterate ISIS. One thing that we've done, we've been involved in no-win wars for the last 50 years. Whether you want to talk about Korea or Vietnam, everywhere we go, we fight, then we finally slump out with our tail between our legs, and somehow we declare victory and walk out in defeat. That's what happened in Vietnam. Well, that's the very thing that Donald Trump is centering his whole campaign around. We don't win anymore. We go in, we lose. Just like we went out of Iraq. We lost that war. We lost Vietnam. And on it goes, because we're not really trying to win. We're trying to put everything under the canopy of a one world governmental system under the United Nations, so that everybody's right, nobody's wrong, you're okay, I'm okay. There's no such thing as truth anymore. There's no such thing as right and wrong. So consequently, that's the kind of a situation we've been in. That's the very thing that Donald Trump is raging about, trying to make us to wake up. And of course, we're supposed to have borders, but they haven't been enforcing the borders at all. So that's the very thing. So I don't know everything. I do not know whether Donald Trump would be a good president or a bad president. I've listened to him. He does make an outrageous statement once in a while. He also, I've listened to him extensively. He's very thoughtful and intelligent on many things. I think he's right on some things. So I don't agree with him on everything. We have two men. Let's assume that either Trump or Cruz will become the Republican nominee. Both of them are very intelligent men. Cruz is very intelligent. So I don't know where it's all going to head. Nevertheless, all I know is the establishment is scared to death of Donald Trump. And let me tell you, the establishment is our problem right now. So that means a lot to me personally.
And on our war with ISIS, do you feel like that it'll escalate or like get more intense? And I'll take the answer off there. Thank you. Have a great weekend.
Okay, and thank you, Patrick. I do believe that the war is going to escalate, whether it's right this moment or whether it's a year or two from now. The Bible prophesies. The only reason I hold these strong feelings is because when I know what the prophecies say, I know what's going to happen. The prophecies say that there is going to be a war from the Euphrates River. That's where ISIS has control right now, and this whole thing could blow up sky high. So there's a very good chance it's going to escalate dramatically. We're just going to have to wait and see whether it's right now or whether it's a year or two from now. That's just a matter of conjecture, but it's coming.
The seeds of the Battle of Armageddon were sown on November 29th, 2012. The seeds sown on that historic day are in the process of producing a dreadful harvest. The Bible actually describes it as the harvest of Armageddon. Learn the story of what happened on November 29th, 2012, when the seeds were sown for the world's final battle, the growth of which are the events that will occur on the journey to where the story ends, at the reaping of the harvest of Armageddon. Call 1-800-END-TIME to order this important lesson.
I want to introduce you today to what I call the Armageddon Hospital. It was October of 2010. The headline, Israel builds world's largest underground hospital, immediately arrested my attention. When I read that it was being built in Haifa, Israel, I fully understood the implications of this announcement. Haifa is located at the western end of the plain of Megiddo, the prophesied site of the Battle of Armageddon. Would the world's largest underground hospital, specifically designed for use in time of war, actually become the hospital to which the wounded of the Battle of Armageddon would be brought? It was obvious to me that the answer to this question was undoubtedly yes.
Go to endtime.com and under Irvin's Thoughts, click the Rambam link to watch the video.
Well, welcome to the last segment of Open Line today. We do have lines open, by the way, which is quite unusual for us here at End of the Age. So if you want to get online with Jim and myself, the number to call right now, 877-END-TIME, 877-363-8463. This particular week has been dominated by the subject of the possibility of a resolution being filed before the UN Security Council France introduced it on Monday. It appears that it's got a lot of backing. The big question is, will the United States enter into the negotiation, help pound out a resolution, and then pass it, insisting that Israel and the Palestinians embrace it? Well, I think the chances are pretty high that they may, in fact, do this because the world wants the U.S. to do this. The world may be saying to Obama, look, if Hillary doesn't win, and if Donald Trump or Ted Cruz wins, we won't get anything done because they're going to side with the Israelis. This is your chance to do something historic, to participate in a fair and balanced peace agreement. Now, when we say fair and balanced, that'll be up to the opinion of the world community, what fair and balanced really means. Nevertheless, it is very likely that these conversations are going on behind closed doors right now. And Obama can say, okay, I'm going to go for it. And let's face it, he's willing to, because he took a lot of heat over the Iranian situation. But he put his head down and he bulldozed through it anyway. Now, it's to Israel's peril and to the world's peril, but nevertheless, he thought it was right. So does he have the ability to do it? Certainly, he does have the ability to do it. So this whole week has been dominated by this, as well it should be, because if in fact, and listen to me carefully, if in fact there is a resolution passed by the United Nations offering a peace agreement supported by the United States and the other big powers, then all of a sudden everything changes. It's a game changer, because now then Israel will ignore the edict of the UN at its own peril. Now then, economic sanctions await. The loss of United States support awaits. It will be something else. So I do not know at this stage whether Obama is going to do this or not. But if he does, it will be a historic decision. Okay, let's get back to the phones, Jim.
All right, let's start this segment out in Texas with Ann. You're next up on End of the Age.
Hi, Irvin. This is Ann. Thank you for taking my call and for all the work that you do.
Thank you.
I had something to add to what you were talking about, Donald Trump and Ted Cruz, whether they agree with the New World Order and that. And I wanted to point out that on a Fox debate recently, when Brett Baer asked Donald Trump to give a couple of names of people that he would select as advisors for national security, he gave 3 names, and the first name he gave was Richard Haas. And for people who don't know, Richard Haas is the head of the CFR. He's been the head of that of CFR for 13 years or more. And his comment was he thinks Richard Haas is excellent and that he has a lot of respect for him.
You know, I heard that, and I was shocked by it because I knew very well who Richard Haas was, and I'm adamantly opposed to the Council on Foreign Relations. So I wrote an email to the Trump campaign and told them that I was shocked, and did they realize that the Council on Foreign Relations was for one world government. I have not received an answer back. However, I did listen to an interview of Donald Trump, I think it was yesterday, and he was asked again, who do you listen to when it comes to foreign policy? He said, well, right now I'm listening to myself. He didn't mention Richard Haas or anybody else. I don't know whether, I imagine he's had some negative reply, and I don't even know how much he knew Richard Haas. Richard Haas called each presidential candidate, according to what I read, and he talked to Donald Trump at the time. But Donald Trump definitely in the conversation yesterday did not repeat what he said before. And I did contact them. I have not heard back from them about that, because obviously that would be alarming to me if he really is depending on Richard Haas for his advice.
It is very alarming. And, you know, he not only mentioned him, but he said he was excellent and had a lot of respect for him. So that sounded like he had knowledge of it, not just that he was, coming up with a name off the cuff.
Yeah, well, I think that's a question that needs to be asked, and hopefully it will be asked. When he was asked that question again yesterday, he did not repeat that reply. But that still doesn't mean that he really knows what's going on. I don't know how much Donald Trump understands the Council on Foreign Relations, its history, its advocacy of one world government. I do not know how much Donald Trump understands that. I don't know how much Ted Cruz understands that.
Yeah,
I do
well,
know that.
Can I mention a YouTube video that people might want to check out? And it has that little small clip of Donald Trump making that recommendation of Richard Haas. And it's on YouTube, called Donald Trump is a Hillary Plant for the CFR. Now, I know that's a inflammatory title, but it's a very good clip. It just shows, it's just a few minutes long, I think 5 minutes, but it shows Ted Cruz denouncing the CFR when he was obviously, I mean, well, it looked to me like it was when he was running for Senate, because it was a question addressed to him, and Tom Leppert, who ran against him for Senate, was also there. So that's when I think that was. But he said it was a nest of snakes. I couldn't quite get exactly, but it was a nest of something, and people, were there, were glad that he said that.
Yeah. And then to balance our discussion out a little bit, you're probably aware that his wife Heidi was a member of the Council on Foreign Relations for several years.
Yes, she was, and she was there as an opposition to what they were doing.
I know that's been said. However, she participated in producing the document of the North American Union. She worked with Condoleezza Rice at the time.
Yeah,
and the North American Union
I know
was
she
when
worked with Condoleezza.
Yeah, the North American Union the plan was to put Mexico, the United States, and Canada all into one and have one common border, so that if they got in one nation,
yeah,
they had
and that's
free.
That's not Ted, though. That's why.
Let me finish, Ann. And so she did write in the document that when this was done, it should not be done by government, that the promotion should be done by business, that job creation should not be done through socialistic means, but through private business. And she was right on that score. And some people have taken that to interpret that she was writing against the North American Union, which she was not. So I think as we look at everybody, I think there needs to be some more questions asked of both Cruz and Trump on that particular score, because we all care about it.
Yes. Well, can I say one more thing about that video? The reason I highly recommend it is because if you listen through to the end, and again, it's very short, it shows Hillary, when she was Secretary of State, talking about how she was happy to have the CFR now have a Washington office, and that she talks about how they tell her what to do and what to think. Right on that video.
Hillary has forever been very closely aligned with the Council on Foreign Relations. And that's probably the biggest issue of this entire presidential campaign.
Yeah, quite stunning, though.
Because the CFR is the establishment. The 50% of all cabinet members in the last 50 years have come from the CFR, no matter whether the Republicans were in power or the Democrats were in power. It's been their way to keep everything under control. And now then, they're screaming to high heavens about both Cruz and Trump. Right now it appears that they fear Trump more than they do Cruz, because a lot of the establishment are falling in line behind Cruz right now. Again, I don't know. All I know is this. As Christians, we all need to be very prayerful and very humble, asking the Lord to give us the person he wants us to have. And I want to get a couple more calls in, so let's move quickly. Jim, back to you.
All right, let's go now to Texas again. And Ron, you're next up.
Hello,
Irvin,
Ron.
Irvin, I really enjoy your program. I'm so thankful that you've been able to put it together. But as you noticed that either one of those two men is our only chance to save this country, because if Hillary gets it, we're gone. because right now our government is committing treason against us because they have all taken the oath of office, including our president. And anytime you go against your country, and especially to go against us on Iran and give them $150 billion when they've already declared themselves as an enemy of the United States, that's treason. Sure. And our Congress and Senate are going along with this because they're not refusing, so they're also committing treason.
Now, has the Congress ratified that agreement, or is that still hanging in the balance?
As far as I know, they have committed themselves to it, and as far as I know, they have already let some of the funds released to that particular.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I know that there was some discussion, and so I'm not sure whether the Congress has committed to it or whether President Obama is simply enacting it unilaterally. That'd be interesting for us to investigate.
Well, that's against the oath of office and the military code of justice. And he, the president, is, of course, affected by both of those.
Yeah. I've been shocked. I've been shocked at Iran at how that we would sign an agreement with them right while they're saying death to the United States and death to Israel. I've been shocked that we would just plug our ears and act like it's not being said and just sign the agreement anyway. Listen, Ron, I'm totally out of time. Got to let you go right now. For all of you that are on hold, I apologize. To get back with us on Monday. Right now, once again, let me announce to you, I will be at Houston, Texas this evening at the Christ Church, the location 12815 Fuquay Street in Houston, Texas. The subject tonight, From Here to Armageddon and World's Greatest Revival, just ahead. That's 7:30 p.m. this evening, March the 18th, Friday night. And I hope you'll make plans to be with us. There's still time to make your plans. It's going to be a great evening. If you'd like to contact us here and become a partner with Endtime Ministries, give us a call. The number to call, 1-800-END-TIME. That's 1-800-363-8463. If you're not yet a partner, well, today is the day to do it. We need you, God needs you, and you'll be blessed. 1-800-END-TIME is the number, 1-800-363-8463.
End of the Age is a production of Endtime Ministries. This broadcast will be available on our website, endtime.com, in the archives section. On our website, you'll also find more information about how current events are fulfilling Bible prophecy. To reach our operators, call 1-800-END-TIME. That's 1-800-363-8463. Endtime Ministries is partner supported. We would like to say thank you to our partners who made this broadcast possible. To do what Matthew 24:14 said, to reach the world with the gospel of the kingdom.